Hi, I'm Lisa Hayden with Channel 6 Central Kentucky TV, Community Focus on Washington County. I am delighted today to have with us Kathy Carter, who is the Democratic candidate for state representative in the 55th District, which includes Washington County, Washington, Mercer,
Part adjustment.
and part of Jessamine
Wilmore.
County. Yeah, so welcome, Kathy.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Well, Kathy, I just have to say, it's a wonderful thing to see all these women running for office. And because in this country, you know, as we've mentioned on Channel 6 before, women are 51% of the population, but we only account for, a third of that. 25%, if that much, I'm not sure, I think it's around that, in representation in our political offices. So it's just a joy to see women running for office, and particularly women who have never been involved in politics before in their lives.
Absolutely. That's me.
So, Kathy, tell us about that. How did this happen?
Well, I became very interested in what was going on with the pensions, and I'm a teacher. I just actually retired last Wednesday, and 30 years of service. And
Thank you for that.
you're welcome. And I just almost became obsessed with what was going on politically. I was going to town halls every single day and just wanted to know what was going on and how they were going to resolve the pension issue. And it just became, I've read, I've researched. I had no intentions of running for office. And we had a rally, which we had the second one I was telling you about a while ago. We had over 3,000 people there that attended the rally on the steps of the Capitol. We had one in November, and that was probably half the attendance of the people that we had there yet on Monday. And it was really exciting. I feel that we have affected change. I'm one of 40 teachers who've actually filed to run for office.
Yeah.
It's pretty exciting.
Teachers
actually.
are mad, aren't they, Kathy?
They are very irritated. We feel that our voices aren't being heard, and not only for teachers, but for state workers, public service employees, the majority of people in Kentucky.
Mm-hmm. Well, you think about teachers, the school system is our biggest employer
Yes.
in this county, and probably in, I suspect, all our counties in the
Yes.
Commonwealth. So, you know, the teachers and the employees in the school system represent a huge majority of voters.
Absolutely. And they also represent a majority of females, most of which are head of single family incomes. And that's very concerning to us as well when you talk about taking a percentage of someone's pension to help pay health care when we've already been paying since 2010, 3.75 of our checks.
Yeah. So teachers have been paying into the retirement system to get their retirement after 27 years of service, full retirement, and also you are not allowed, which people, when I tell them this, are surprised. You do not pay into the Social Security system when you, as a teacher. But now in other jobs, you may be paying into Social Security, but you don't get to draw Social Security. You rely solely on your pension.
Absolutely.
From the state retirement.
And I also taught with a teacher earlier this year. Her husband died at a young age, and she also was not able to receive his benefits because she was a teacher.
That's amazing, isn't it?
It really was.
I mean, you just think, golly, what? I mean, it just doesn't even make sense.
It doesn't.
No.
And we just had to make that clear because a lot of people really didn't understand that that's the way it was.
Yeah, yeah. And so that is what motivated you to run for office, because of the pension system with the teachers. But now I know that you've always, even though you have never run for political office, and here you are running for state representative,
Exactly.
a big office.
Exactly.
But I know that you've always had an interest in politics, although not in a professional capacity, or not in a, nor were you in any political other systems. But I know you have other ideas about things that you want to accomplish as a state representative. Of course, you are running against the incumbent, Kim King, who has been in office now for quite some time.
It's 2011.
2011. So I understand there are other interests that you have as well, besides, of course, the retirement issue. So perhaps you can share that with us.
Absolutely. Healthcare, which I took some notes, if that's okay, I might refer to them. The House voted to take $480 million from the employee health plan. At this point, it has about $720 million, according to Jason Bailey on KentuckyPolicy.org. There are still transfers that are going to come out of that budget in July, which is about $312.5 approximately million dollars, which leaves $417 million, and the House voted to take $480 million from that account, which is going to leave a deficit of around $63 million.
For health care, for
Which is
public employees,
yes,
teachers, and state employees.
yes, the KEHP account. So I'm wondering how they're going to balance. That puts us in the hole right from the beginning. There was a caveat in part of Senate Bill 1 where if that fund was not 90% funded, they would somehow come back to us for that payment, which puts us right back to where we were in the beginning when they were wanting to take 3% of our checks.
Well, as we all know, Kathy, unfortunately, the legislature for a long time has been taking money out of teachers' retirement and state employee retirement. Generally, their salaries are low to begin with, and so it was those benefits, the retirement system, which the state employee and teacher pays into, and for matching through the state, and pays insurance premiums just like everyone else, but some of the medical premium was covered through the state, and so of course we know how that has gotten. That's gotten worse and worse and worse, with the employee paying more of the premium and less benefits. But you've had the legislature forever taking money out of those accounts, and that's disturbing. And so here you are. We're saying now they're trying. We want it to be funded like it should be funded, and now they're talking about taking more money out of it.
Well, and I don't understand the governor's refusal to have the conversation about funding, because there are ways that, without raising taxes, that could happen with Representative Wayne's House Bill 263.
And what is that?
It addresses the upside-down Kentucky tax system, in addition to cleaning up loopholes for the inequities that wealthier Kentuckians would pay versus middle class.
So it's a tax reform bill.
Absolutely, comprehensive tax reform. And it was introduced in the General Assembly last year with, I think, 12 co-sponsors.
And so you've got, which would close those loopholes, which would allow for more income for the state, because that seems to be a big issue in where are we going to get the money to fund the pension system, and that should have been funded all along. And so where's the money going to come from? So that's one opportunity on lost revenue, basically, that we should have already been receiving if you could close those loopholes.
Those expenditures, I think, are costing us $13 million. This, if with full implementation of House Bill 263, would generate $579 million and put money in economic growth for schools, infrastructure, and health, and simultaneously pay down the liability. It's a win-win.
And so, but we aren't.
He won't have that
You've been
conversation.
lobbying up there this week, I know, for
I have.
various, for the pension thing and for this bill as well. So, so have you met with much success? It
I feel
sounds
that-
like it's.
I feel that we have. I was there Friday in the Senate gallery texting my friends who were out on the steps of the rotunda, and our collective voices were heard. It was so exciting that they actually went to caucus, they dismissed. We were still there. They came back, dismissed for lunch. We were still there. We would not leave. And they ended up sending Senate Bill 1 back to the state and local government committee meeting, which is, we're watching to see. It's usually on Wednesdays, but they didn't call for that to be for the call of order. So I feel like that's a win. In addition to not having a special session before, the end
Yeah.
of 2017. And I feel like that's because we all collectively said we're not going to accept this.
Yeah, yeah. So now you mentioned, the health issue and then the pension system, and there was something else you just mentioned with our infrastructure. Because, I hear all this talk about the infrastructure all the time, on the national level as well. And here we are putting monies into, of course, on the national level, into defense, when I feel like our country is falling apart, and in our with regard to our infrastructure, bridges, roads, our water systems, our electric systems. You just feel like that we need so many things, and within our state, we need so many things. How is it? I mean, I worry sometimes about driving. I know this may sound crazy, but my brother used to inspect bridges for the state.
Oh, really?
Not here in Kentucky, but at any rate, and I've never seen anyone more afraid to go across a bridge. I mean, it just kind of makes you wonder sometimes, because you see where these bridges have fallen in places, and so now I think about, oh my gosh, and those are things that I am worried about, and so do you think there's a way to do something about our infrastructure?
I think we advocate for finding funding first. That's been our battle cry this entire time since September of 2017 when we started. We've all forged relationships with legislators and those who are working on our behalf. There are answers to these problems. It just doesn't seem to be the solutions that this administration wants to pursue.
Well, it's sure perplexing to me. And so it sounds like if we could just get this one particular bill passed, that would generate a lot of income, and that's, what's that bill again?
House Bill 263.
And that's a tax reform bill.
Comprehensive tax reform from the Kentucky Blue Ribbon Commission on Tax Reform, and the suggestions by Legislative Research Committee. Their physical note was that it would generate $579 million, starting with implementation, full implementation.
Well, I suppose the people that are fighting that are the ones that the loopholes are going to have them pay more taxes.
That would address the inequities, which would require that wealthier Kentuckians pay more of their fair share. When they were voting on the workers' compensation bill, they made reference that ours was too generous when in regard to our bordering states. When you look at the wealthy Kentuckians and what they pay in terms of their fair share, we are much more generous to those wealthy Kentuckians when you compare that to the border states. So why not look at that as well?
Yeah.
Kind of
point.
want their cake and eat it too.
Yeah. Very good point, Kathy. And so, and also you mentioned something about the bill for our, was it our firefighters, or there was another bill with regard to.
You mean what Senate Bill 1 will do to the public safety, which
Yes.
it's already decimated the recruitment, because the changes in Tier 3 with Senate Bill 1 is worse with this Senate bill than it was in 2013 with the addition of the Tier 3.
Which is, for those who don't understand that, and I'm not sure I do either, explain that a little more
That's
fully.
when which is another interesting point, because they did this level tier system, and
Who did?
that was implemented in 2013. Actually, when the legislators met with the John and Laura Arnold Foundation, which is also, I don't know that they would be affiliated with the Koch brothers, but it's that ALEC, that American Legislative Exchange Council type agenda to place people into a 401k versus a defined benefit, which over the life of a retirement account, you're basing you take the risk, the state no longer has the risk, and you basically would have to have a 7.25% return every year and work an additional, you'd have to work 37 years to meet what they tried to compare it to a defined benefit, and there's no comparison because you're depending on the stock market, which just lost how many points not too long ago.
Yeah, yeah. So, well, I know that's been a consideration in some states. I don't know if many states have gone to that or not.
Well, as a matter of fact, I don't know if you're familiar with Richard Ojeda. He is a fierce advocate for the working families and working people of Virginia, West Virginia. He was instrumental in the teacher strike there. He was very supportive of them. He actually did a video and posted it to my page, and I would love for people to go and watch it. It's awesome. He's incredible. He's dynamic. He's a former veteran. He fights to the death for the working person. He does not accept any large PAC donations because he does not want
Political action group donations.
Yes, he does not want that influence. He is all about working families, and he feels that the workers have been put in positions that are shameful, and their voices aren't being heard. And that's probably another one of what's near and dear to my heart is the working person. I feel that policy needs to come from the bottom up, not the top down.
Yeah, yeah. And of course, you're a teacher, retired now, just now retired, and you've grown up in Mercer County.
I have.
And then you went on to get your higher education in teaching at where?
I have a master's degree from Western and Eastern, and actually it's a 5th year, and it's very close to another master's degree. And I also have my doctorate. I have not yet completed a dissertation, but I completed all the classwork.
Yeah, yeah.
In educational leadership.
So you're certainly a highly educated woman.
That's my therapy. I research.
And you have a family. You have children.
Which is another issue that is near to my heart. We are also dealing with the opioid situation. He became addicted to Percocet. Jesse,
Your
our
son.
And we actually really, if you want to know where the real start of this was, I was reading my phone at one point, and the governor made his comments about teachers hoarding sick days and gaming the system, and I sat straight up in the bed because 5 teachers that were in another county I taught in Boyle County for 10 years, and we all took in children that had very at-risk and difficult backgrounds. It's been very difficult, and we've all...
So you took in this young man.
Yes.
Adopted?
He had just turned 8.
Okay.
We were appointed legal guardians for all of them. And it's...
For how many children?
5 children. For each, there were 5 families of teachers that
took in one of these children.
Yes.
Each took in one child.
Yes.
To try to keep these children together or close together.
Yes. Otherwise, they were going to be spread across the state in foster care. And it was very difficult. The older they got, the more difficult the problems. His oldest brother was killed in a car wreck. His brother in age, I think he's a year older, he's in prison for murder.
Now, their parents were drug, is that what you're saying?
They had a long-standing history, and that was another thing. The Family Resource Centers of Boyle County and Marion County probably saved their lives. I'm just a huge advocate of Family Resource Centers. My sister's the director of the Mercer County Family Resource Center, and with the collaboration with teachers and those resource centers, they were able to facilitate the placement in our homes, along with social workers as well.
Yeah, yeah. So now this young man you raised, and then he became addicted to...
We got him through Western. He went a year. He did fairly well. He started having difficulty, and he ended up withdrawn from Western and went to Bluegrass Community Technical College, lived at home. During that time, he worked really hard to pass his ASVAB, the test that you have to take before you go into the military, and really worked very hard to meet the physical requirements that the military requires. He went to the military for 4 years, and he was honorably discharged. And he came back to live back home, and I had no idea that this had occurred. And I had to make some really tough decisions. And at this point, he's had some difficulty with incarceration, and I really understand how hard that is for families to deal with opioid addictions.
Yeah, yeah.
And that needs to be a priority in this budget as well.
Well, and in his situation, I think you told me, is that he was on pain medications, and that's how he became addicted, because he had an injury.
Many injuries in the military.
Which I understand is a huge problem, with a lot of the opioid addiction problems. So, but then, and so you're familiar personally, not only with the opioid addiction problems in our state, but also with incarceration, because I think that's another issue that is of concern.
Well, and we just had a meeting with Mercer and Boyle County Shared Jail, and we went to that meeting last week. It was probably a little over 2 hours, and it was so incredibly helpful to hear there were lawyers there, judges, police, the jailer, and it was very interesting because we don't want our jails to become mental health places that you're really dealing with mental health issues versus the person really needing to be incarcerated.
Yeah.
And we had a long discussion, and they've actually hired this firm to come in and help those 2 counties to create or generate solutions to what's going on in the jails, in addition to the fact that there are women housed there alongside with men. It's a split situation, and one of the consultants was talking about the very special needs that women have and how difficult it is when they lose their children, and the children that are in schools and how that affects them to have a parent that's incarcerated.
Yeah.
It's a lot. And I'm also a counselor. I was a middle school and a high school counselor, can also very much identify with what's happening with families.
Yeah, yeah. So you are firsthand knowledgeable of the trials and tribulations that our citizens face every day, and not only through in your own life, but as a school teacher and as a school counselor. So you, I would say, Kathy would be a very good advocate to have on your side for these types of issues. And is there anything at this time that you feel is of necessity, that is something you want to work on as a state legislator if elected? And in addition to some very big problems you've just mentioned here, tax reform, the pension system, health care, and the opioid problem, and the infrastructure. So sounds like that in and of itself are those are a lot of big problems to tackle.
As I've talked to the teachers, the other teachers that are running as well, we are all figuring it out. We've had a lot of support from legislators, the Kentucky Democratic Party, which is very helpful. And I would like to see more transparency with the executive branch in terms of legislation on showing income tax forms, and even possibly some of the legislators, because I feel that our state and democracy has been hijacked, and I'm very concerned about it. It literally keeps me up at night.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And because you feel like some people are benefiting from these political action.
I do. I absolutely do.
And that they is what I'm hearing seems to be the common thread here, is that people don't feel like their voices are being heard.
They're not.
Yeah.
They're not. And we, even with the 3,000 people that were there, and
in Frankfurt at the rally
on Monday
for the teachers
and
and the state employees.
They still have Senate Bill 1 on the agenda, and we're just not sure exactly how they're going to handle it. And another point is they've talked about House Bill 185, and if Senate Bill 1's not passed, they are threatening not to pass House Bill 185, which is in a line of duty death benefit to the fallen officers' families. So we just can't allow that. It's unacceptable, and I'm going to shout from the mountaintops until they listen.
Yeah, yeah. Well, hopefully you'll be up there representing us, and we'll have someone to call and be able to talk with about these issues.
That's right. I think that's very important, to make sure that you do speak with your constituents, because that is the job.
Yeah, yeah.
In a timely, respectful manner.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know. And so we appreciate this very much, Kathy. You're taking time out to come today. I know you're busy on these issues and trying to affect change, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So thanks again.
Thank
Look
you for
forward
having
to
me.
seeing you.